Welcome back to the Empirical Scouting Podcast. This is your host, Taylor. Taylor coming back after week 2 of college football. We had some decent-sized matchups, some upsets, some surprises, some letdowns. But we are going to kick it off with the biggest game of the evening. Texas rolling into Tuscaloosa and making a statement and pulling out that win. Quinn Ewers kind of gets redemption from that injury from last year, which you ask any Texas fan, and I'll even say that I believe that Texas probably wins that game. What do you think is like the biggest statement out of that game? Like, what did you come away with after watching that game?
That Alabama is not the Alabama of old. That's the biggest thing here. Is this team looks dysfunctional. I mean, dysfunctional is maybe a little bit too strong of a word, but Milroe can't read a defense to save his life, it feels like. The running game is just like, it's good still, but it's not elite like we're used to seeing. Their defense is nowhere near what we have come to expect an Alabama defense to be. Dallas Turner, I don't know what Dallas Turner's stats were off the top of my head, and I'm gonna look, but like he felt invisible to me. The DBs felt like they were getting torched left and right, and I know part of that is a true freshman starting at safety for them. And the kid's obviously a very talented player. He's a 5-star recruit, but this Alabama team isn't the same Alabama team, and I don't know if they're. That was one of my preseason takes I had, and I know some of our other real life friends had that take as well. But like Alabama is not going to surprise me if they finish with 3 to 4 losses.
Yeah, that makes sense. And looking it up, Dallas Turner had 3 total tackles, but only one of them were solo tackles. So that's really it. He kind of ghosted that game. I mean, it says Jalen Milroe had a tackle, so he only had 2 tackles more than Jalen Milroe. So it's kind of concerning to see. Like you mentioned, Caleb Downs, 10 total tackles, 5 solos. So when, like you always tell me, when your safety is one of your leading tacklers, Trezor Marshall tied him with that as well. When he's tied for the leading tackles, something's up with your front seven, and it just doesn't look like a dominant front seven that we're used to seeing. I mean, Alabama, you're probably more familiar with the actual defensive scheme than me, but to me, it always seems like they just want to rush their 3 or 4 guys, drop 7, 8 back in coverage, and just say we're going to get pressure on you no matter how many guys we send, and we're just going to blanket the field. That's how they always get their interceptions. That's how they shut down teams. They suffocate them because they always have those dominant D linemen. But the only one that I had my eye on was Dallas Turner out of this defensive line that is currently there, and he didn't show up. I'm sure he was getting doubled, tripled, but that means someone else has to step up, and no one really did that.
Well, so I just looked it up too, and I mean, scheme-wise, I haven't looked at anything particular. I don't know off the top of my head exactly what they were running out there, but Dallas Turner had a pass rush win percentage. I mean, it's saying it's either 0 or 2.9 according to PFF. Like I'm trying to figure it out right now, but like it doesn't.
It was low.
Good. Yeah, it's not. It's not good.
He was not winning his one-on-ones.
It's actually 0% on his pass rush win percentage, I think. So like that's not good for a guy that's projected to be a top 20 pick as a edge rusher.
Not at all. And I mean, I don't think really Texas doesn't have any guys I can think off the top of my head that's NFL caliber, certified at least like first round picks. Obviously, I'm sure they're going to have some big losses at the front line, but I know they're coming, especially with these recruiting classes they're getting. But I don't think this is a team that someone with the capabilities of Dallas Turner should have dominated, or at least shown up.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's expected to be a first-round pick going into the year. What is he doing for me lately? Like, I mean, I don't mean that in the way it sounds, but like he's obviously talented, but we've seen plenty of talented players not produce and fall in the draft. I mean, Robert Kimdichi's one. Like, he went from being a guy that was going to be a top 5 pick to into the first round, and that was a reach. Michael Johnson for Georgia Tech back in the day was
Oh,
a
I
first round
remember him.
projected
Yeah.
guy, and he fell. Like, if you don't produce, even no matter how talented you are, you're going to fall.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you just got to put up their stats. But moving to the other side of the ball on offense, I mean, I know I'm much higher on him than you are, but I mean, Quinn Ewers showed up. You can't deny it. I mean, 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He did his thing. And it's just so funny to see because it's kind of like a meme at this point for especially Georgia fans. But I mean, Adonai Mitchell, big play AD, like he had, I think his last 5 games now in college, he has a touchdown in every single one of them, and that's the college football national championship, college football semifinal, college football national championship. 2 semifinals, 2 championships. Then he had one on the first week, and then he had 2 on Saturday against Alabama. He just shows up when it matters. He only had 3 catches, so it's not like he dominated, but 3 catches and 2 of those were touchdowns. He has a way to find the end zone. That was
he looks
was
super
fun to see.
talented. He really
Yeah,
does.
he just doesn't get the reps. I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, that's the only thing I want from him is to get some catches that aren't touchdowns. And like, I know
Yeah,
that's a
I know.
weird sounding complaint almost, but it's like, just give me something to go off of that isn't, a big touchdown play. Like, can you move the chains for a team, like, and be a consistent like receiver for them in any other way? Or are you going to be a guy that's getting 2 catches for 28 yards and 2 touchdowns every game? Like, what is this here? Because if
Exactly.
you
And
can,
obviously people take that, but
yeah,
you need
like,
more consistency.
but so the difference there is those 2 catches, like, that's the guy that I'm considering like the second, third round. Whereas if you're a guy that's moving the chain consistently, like, you can produce like an 8 like a Justin Jefferson game. I'm not saying like that direct comparison, but like Justin Jefferson had like 9 catches for 190 yards this past Sunday. Like, you can have games like that for me. I'm gonna take you in the first round all day long. And
Exactly.
Xavier Worthy's, a different kind of player. He's got a different body style, and he's a deep threat almost. But Xavier Worthy's had a great game too. Jatavion
Yep.
Sanders had a great game.
Yeah, that's what I was about to mention next. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Xavier Worthy had 5 for 75 and a touchdown, but then Jatavian Sanders, I mean, he's not ever going to pass Brock Bowers, but he's pushing up into close to that first round territory. I mean, 5 catches, 114 yards with a 50-yard scamper. Like, man, he looks just like he could be just a big wide receiver. He could just go into the league as a receiver
Yeah,
at this
I mean,
point.
Sanders is super talented from what I've seen of him. I think he's solidly a top 75 player. I hesitate to say round 1 just because, like, we see so often tight ends come in and they're not producing round 1 levels of production. Unfortunately, Kyle Pitts
Yeah.
like that. Noah Fant, TJ Hawkins. Like, Hawkinson's finally starting to do something. But Bowers looks like he's that special kind of player beyond tight end, like how Kyle Pitts was. I don't know if I see that with Sanders. So it's like, if you're taking him in early, like, you got to have a role for him, like how the Bills had for Kincaid lined up. If you don't, you're wasting a pick almost.
Exactly. And just to wrap it up, I just got one question. If you were Nick Saban, what are you doing at quarterback? Like, what is your plan? Because you're giving the job to Miller right now. He's obviously doesn't look like he has the capabilities to win you a game at this caliber. Does that mean Ty Simpson and Buckner just are even worse at practice? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, so I mean, Simpson's definitely got to look worse, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
5-star quarterback, they can't
Saban's
beat him out.
also known to be like kind of loyal to the upperclassmen in a lot of ways. Like, it took him a long time to be willing to play Tua over Hurts, even though like Hurts, he's not the guy. He was not the guy at Alabama that he is now, and I really think the time in Oklahoma really helped move him along, and even the time in the NFL where he wasn't a starter.
Yeah.
So Simpson, like, you would think he's not looking as good, but I'm at the point where I would play Buckner. We've seen Buckner have some level of success playing at a D1 level against good competition. and I think he's shown that he can move the ball passing better than Milroe can.
Mm-hmm.
And like this team needs a game manager at least. Like, and Milroe's not that. Milroe's felt extremely boomer bust to me on every possession.
Yeah.
Whether that's warranted or not.
No, I mean it's definitely warranted. I mean, you thought he either was throwing an interception, turning the ball over some capacity, or it was a home run ball out of nowhere. I mean, he was. The thing was, he just kept answering just enough to like keep him in the game. It felt like that it was just like, I can't bench him. Just like he answered a little, like answered back to like the adversity that he had. And it's kind of like I get it, but I mean, moving forward, I just wouldn't have any faith in him. And even going into next year, it's kind of like if Ty Simpson is looking this bad in practice, which we're assuming, of course, like Julian Sain's coming in, he's a top quarterback recruit, but like, is he going to play as a true freshman at Alabama? I mean, that's a lot of pressure.
I think it's
I
the
don't
portal.
think that they would do that. Yeah, it's going to have to be the portal.
And, well, I mean,
I know they went after it this year.
Both Buckner and Milroe could be back next year too. I mean, Buckner is either back next year or he's playing at a lower level of football because he used his transfer. So, I mean, Alabama's quarterback likely next year is going to be. I honestly would bet it's Buckner at this point, or it's going to be somebody else from the portal that comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows nowadays?
Yeah, and I mean, I'll wrap it up by saying I think that rumor of a team offering Drake May $5 million to come over, like it has Bama written all over it for me. I don't know if that came out with who the team was, but like
I'm pretty sure like it was heavily rumored that it was Bama. Like I think Bama was specifically named.
Yeah,
and
I think they knew
like,
what they had.
Yeah, I think it didn't. He like they wanted him.
Yeah,
like point
blank. I think
I
want to say they even went after when Tyler Van Dyke was. I thought I read something where he was contemplating going into the portal, or he was in the portal and came out. I don't remember exactly which one, but I remember seeing there was a connection there as well. So I think they knew what they had. They went for some transfers. They didn't pan out. Sam Hartman. I think I'm sure they had some talks with Sam Hartman.
Maybe I feel like Hartman was like locked in at Notre Dame even before he entered the portal.
Probably.
Like it was like the most like obvious like
it was
like telegraphed like move we've seen, to the point where it was like almost did they break a rule?
Yeah, that was something. But they knew what they had. They couldn't get a quarterback to beat them out, so they're rolling with it and kind of just they went for the moon with Jalen Milroe, and it's gonna be interesting to see what they do going forward. But we'll move on to our next matchup. Probably, I think I saw it was the actually most watched game on Saturday, which is weird. But Nebraska at Colorado, Prime's opening day at home. They pull out a 36-14 win. I mean, I was higher on Colorado than a lot just because of the talent alone. A whole week schedule. Because there wasn't, at least at the beginning of the year, there's kind of a weak schedule, and they have the talent, especially at a lot of skill positions that are better than their opponents, and we saw that come to fruition these first two games. Shedeur Sanders almost 400 yards again. Dylan Edwards didn't have the game that he had last week, but 9 rushes for 55 yards. Travis Hunter's just a dude, 73 yards on offense. I don't even know. He had 4 solo tackles on defense and a pass breakup, but people aren't also throwing on the ball, and when you have Jeff Sims, he's not going to throw the ball that much anyway. So didn't really see him too much, but what is your overall take on this Colorado team? They're shooting at the boards. I think they're up to 18 now in the AP poll.
Like, I feel like such a Debbie Downer saying this, but like I still feel like it's almost an overreaction to hype because of who their coach is. Like this Nebraska team isn't good, and I think there's some hope with it, but like I have hope for Jeff Sims like putting it together because like there's been instances like where he showed raw talent and he was at Georgia Tech and they had nobody around him. Except for Jahmyr Gibbs, but like he played horrible, like to the point where like I have given up on Jeff Sims being a salvageable like quarterback prospect or anything. And like Eric Gilbert's not even eligible for this team. Like he's their second best player, probably like on paper. Their linebacker Reamer had a good game. he looked good, but like this Matt Rule, whatever the stat is, like he's never won like more than like 3 games his first year at a program.
Yeah.
He's a rebuilder, and this Nebraska team's not good this year. Now, granted, Shador had some good moments. You know, he showed more of like being a true quarterback, like than I was giving him credit for even last week. Like moving around the pocket, making good throws. Travis Hunter, I'm looking at it right now. Travis Hunter didn't allow a yard in coverage.
Jesus.
According to PFF.
Yeah, that man.
So like these guys are obviously really talented. It's just a matter of getting them to against better talent. And I want to say in a couple of weeks they play Oregon, and that's like they play Oregon and USC, and like
I think it's
those are their only two
this coming weekend, but the weekend after, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like
because this is their last hurrah, in my opinion.
Double-digit wins.
Yeah, and this is like their last hurrah. Like they're gonna come out against Colorado State at home again, beat the brakes off them, in my opinion, and then the real test is gonna come. You're gonna get the USCs, we're gonna get the Oregons, the Oregon States, like Utah, like they're gonna start facing some beasts, and they got some players that can match up. I mean, Shedder was a 4-star. I mean, Dylan Edwards is good. Travis Hunter is obviously one of the top Heisman candidates in the whole entire NCAA. I mean, Xavier Weaver is a good receiver. They have some dudes, but like they don't have a full roster. And these teams that are coming up that are going to be facing them do have full rosters of dudes, and it's just going to be kind of a wake up call because that offense is rolling, but that offensive line is going to be their downfall because I mean even Nebraska is 4-win team last year. I don't even know if they'll win 4-win games this year. And I know Big Ten defense and everything, but like they're not good. And Nebraska was getting to Shedder a lot. And to what you were saying before, he showed a lot of like more like pro qualities in this game than he did last week. The one thing I've noticed with him, and I kind of noticed it in game one, but against TCU, but I didn't really think anything of it, was he just refuses to use his legs. He thinks that he has to stand in the pocket, just move around within the pocket, and do whatever it takes to get the ball out of his hands in the pocket. Like Shedder just does not seem to like he wants to use his legs just to roll out of the pocket. I'm not saying to like scramble. There were plenty of times where he had 8-yard scramble, easy, run. Didn't matter. I don't even know if first down, second down, third down, whatever. But he would just try to force the ball in, and that's the one bad quality in Shedder I've seen is that he's unwilling to use his legs, even just to get out in space to create an open play. I mean, he does do it, but there was so many times where he was just standing in the pocket, and just like it was kind of like his eyes were locked downfield, and he just like he had tunnel vision. He just didn't see anyone coming around, and he just kept getting hit off to the sides. This is a lot in the first quarter and second quarter when they were struggling because obviously they pulled away in the second half of the game, but. It was just, I was just getting kind of annoyed. I'm like, just move your legs, just get away. If you just roll out of the pocket, someone's going to be open every single time for you. His receivers are really good at, following the quarterback and getting into open space. So, like, use that. And he started doing it in the second half a little bit more, but it's something I want to notice, I want to keep track of, especially, coming up against, even though, like, we always, talk about how bad USC's defense is and, like, Oregon's defense isn't that great. But, I mean, Dan Lanning does have a good scheme. And then even coming into, like, the Utahs and Oregon States that have good defenses, like, those are what I'm really interested to see him battle against because, like, that offensive line is not good. And he's going to
My thing with Shedor, from a pure, like, looking at him as a potential pro quarterback perspective through that lens, and I feel like I'm the only one that has said this so far. Like, I literally don't think I've heard any media people say this or anything. I feel like I'm on crazy pills because I do not think his arm is that strong. I think his arm is average at best in terms of arm strength. He's showing good qualities otherwise, and you can obviously succeed in the NFL without having an overly strong arm. Kenny Pickett doesn't have like a crazy strong arm. Like Tua's arm has been super heavily criticized since he's gotten to the pros. I don't see this like anything special in terms of velocity when the ball comes off his hand. And
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
No, I
Like,
mean
I
it's
don't know.
I see it. Like a lot of Colorado's best work is schemed to be closer to the line of scrimmage. And when he stays, when like that first half against Nebraska, it was also frustrating because I'm like, where are these short passes that they're trying to they were trying to like rely on like longer routes that take time to develop, and his offensive line just couldn't hold up. But once they started going back to the short, quick games, the curl routes, the out routes, the slant routes, that's when they started rolling again. And once you start rolling, you have that up tempo offense, then you can bring in the deep pass because the defensive line is tired. That's what they need to do. But I do agree, like that it is kind of concerning that like I don't think he can just drop back consistently and have those like medium to deep passes, hit incomplete over and over and over again. But I do think he's smart. He seems to be able to read the field pretty well. It wasn't like he
Well,
wasn't.
this kid's had, let's just
Yeah,
be honest, like he's had elite coaching from the
yeah,
time he was probably
yeah,
in diapers still, like, because they can afford private coaches.
yeah,
So he's got a huge leg up, and it shows. It really does show that like this kid has been really well coached for a long time because he has habits that just like kind of how people talk about Arch, like how and Arch is a different level of hype because of his last name, but like when you have that kind of coaching from a young age, it really shows because you develop habits differently. You never develop those bad habits as much, and if you do, like it's coached out of you so much faster because you have someone paying attention to you more than 99% of kids are.
yeah, not for sure. So I'm interested to see like I said, they're gonna come out 3-0, probably get ranked close to top 12. But then the real test started, and that's when they're going to start struggling to get some wins. I can definitely see it, especially against the competition that is coming up against them in the Pac-12. But we'll move on to our next game. A game I was kind of excited to watch. I think it was during 3:30, the 3:30 slate where there's not really much going on. But Texas A&M, it went down to Coral Gables. Gave them a game. But Miami. You don't like to say they're back, but I mean, dropping 48 on a solid Texas A&M team was pretty impressive. Remember watching that game, and even though it was 48-33, that game seemed so far out of hand. Texas A&M just they made a couple too many mistakes somewhere in the second and third quarters, and that's when it started getting out of hand. And Miami just poured it on them. I mean, Tyler Van Dyke kind of like was it 2021 where he was getting talked about as possibly a upcoming top draft pick, and then just kind of his talent just dipped and he was struggling. I think he got benched last year. Was about to transfer out. They brought him back in, but 375 yards and 5 touchdowns. I mean, I know it. I know it was at home, and I know Texas A&M isn't anything to write home about, but they're still a solid team. They have solid prospects. They have that 5-star, whatever the blue chip ratio. Like they're high up in that. Like
They should be beating Miami. They should have
yeah,
beaten Miami just based on paper talent.
oh for sure. I mean, they have everything you need in talent, and the major takeaway that I got out of this wasn't like you were saying, isn't even Miami. I mean, that was very impressive, especially Tyler Van Dyke, but is Jimbo Fisher. Like how that clock is ticking on him. It has to be ticking. I mean, that he got the number one
Can they even
overall.
afford to buy him out?
That
Like the buyout's astronomical.
I
I'm pretty
know.
sure.
I mean, oil money, Texas money. I mean, they find a way. But man, I don't know if there's a coach in recent history that I can think of that's done so little with so much. I mean, he having a number one recruit or number one recruit, but number one class, top 5 classes every now and then past that. I mean, he keeps
To be
getting these
fair, he
guys to
literally
commit.
does have a number one recruit. Like
Yeah,
in a
no, he
sense,
does.
he
Yeah,
does have a number one recruit.
yeah,
He's got LT Overton on that team, who's I mean he's a sophomore and he actually should be a freshman
yeah,
because he reclassified. But LT Overton was literally the number one recruit in his class for a minute
yeah.
over
I
Arch
just forgot
Manning.
about him. Yeah, I forgot about him
Yeah,
honestly because I forgot he moved back up. But I mean, Connor Wegman, I mean, he threw the ball 53 times. Jeez. That's wild. They did not want to run the ball. 336 yards, but I mean, when you throw the ball 53 times, I'm expecting you to get over 300 yards
I
personally in college.
I just want to know what Moose Muhammad or his dad have done to Petrino or Jimbo for him to have one target and one catch. The kid is way too talented. Like, I haven't gone back and watched anything, but that kid is way too talented to have one catch. And I know Evan Stewart's out there, and Evan Stewart is an absolute stud from what it appears, but it makes no sense that the ball can't be distributed at all.
Yeah. No, it really doesn't.
Force-fed one kid. And that's, like, it's obviously, like, you're dominant if you're getting that many touches and that many targets and catches, but at the same time, I personally am of the opinion that typically a healthy offense is feeding other mouths a little bit more than like just one person nonstop.
Yeah, you can't, even in college, you can't just lock on to one receiver. You have to be able to spread it out a little bit just to get that pressure off of him. Because elite teams and elite coaches will know, like, hey, they're obviously scheming to get this guy open. Like, we're gonna blanket him. We're gonna have safety over the top, maybe a linebacker inside in case he runs over the middle of the field. Like, they'll find ways to just bracket them in. But yeah, it's just wild. I'm looking back at it. I mean, Connor Wegman had 31 total completions, and 11 of them were to Evan Stewart. So it was like 35% of his completions all went to Evan Stewart. I mean, he's a stud, like you were saying. But man, Anais Smith's still there. Like you said, Moose Muhammad's there. They have other dudes there. Like, spread the ball out a little bit more. I mean, you're going to rack up yards and you can rack up stats all you want. But if you see, 11 receptions for Evan Stewart and then the next highest is 4, like, you're probably not winning that game, barring, it's a blowout and, defensive touchdowns and whatnot. But it was just kind of concerning to see, like, Jimbo. I'm just like, how long does he have? Because that contract, obviously, like you're saying, is probably hard to get out of. A lot of money. Even, people with oil money is like, I don't know if I want to donate that much money just to get him out. But how long can the 12th man just sit back and just go, well, this is us. We're going to be a top 25 team at the end of the season, but we're not breaking the top 20. We're going to keep getting these recruits in because we can pay them more than a lot of other schools, but with NIL, but we're not going to do anything with it. It's clearly the coaching. I mean, there's a whole culture there. People make fun of, obviously back in the day with the Miamis, Bama's going through it, Georgia's going through it, just, people getting in trouble. But I mean, Texas A&M is going through that same situation, but the difference is Georgia won national championships. Bama won national championships. Miami was winning national championships.
Be a little fair here. Be a little fair to dog on you a little bit. Is Georgia didn't win national championships for a very long time.
No, I'm talking about like the culture of getting arrested.
Now currently they've won national championships, but their culture, truthfully, is a little bit suspect, and it is the most suspect situation in college football. But Jimbo Fisher's not new to this either. Like the culture for the FSU teams with Jameis was wildly out of control, and like. Those teams were so talented, but wildly out of control. And I mean, Texas A&M honestly has not been as bad as what FSU was in terms of that. But like, truthfully, like, you give the talent that this team has, you give Connor Wegman and Overton and McKinley Jackson and Evan Stewart and Moose Muhammad, you put them on Bama, you put them on Georgia. This is a national title team because Kirby and Saban are going to coach those guys better than this. And I read this on, like, I'll give the shout. I read this on Reddit. There was somebody that had made the comment that's like how Jimbo got lucky with a generational quarterback season from Jameis, and he's been riding that since then, and he has not proven to be what people act like he is without Jameis Winston. And like, I'm starting to buy that more and more because I was super high on Jameis, like, when Jameis went pro. Like, I thought Jameis was going to be very successful. We argued the Jameis Mariota argument between us. Like, Jameis made stupid plays in college, but, like, the dude made great plays and carried the team at times. Like, because that team around him was not that great.
He has, like, Jameis just has that kind of, like, I'm not saying, like, the it factor, but, like, he has that charisma around him where it's, like, he can get the best out of it.
Did.
Yeah, he can get in FSU. But like, I'm talking about, like, he just can get the best out of his teammates. There's something about him. He's so goofy, and sometimes corny, but it's just one of those things where it's like people rally around it. And I mean, that's props to him. But like you said, I think Jimbo could be just riding the coattails of Jameis, even to this day, into that huge contract at Texas A&M. And now it's kind of like, what are you gonna do? Buy me out? sure, I'll just go have my money and be an analyst somewhere for a little bit. And eventually, find my way back to head coaching if I want to. Uh, so it's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't know how long these recruits are going to keep going in because I mean, you want to still go and get that money and obviously play Division I football, especially in the SEC. But if these guys don't develop and then they see there's a history of these Texas A&M players just not developing how they should have, especially after this number one overall class, and like say one of them becomes a round one pick, it's kind of like, okay, do I really want to commit there if I'm a top recruit? Because
I could
I'll get that
I
money
could
up front, but I'm
here's
not going to get
the
money
bigger
back.
issue. I could reasonably see this team having 6 losses this year. They just lost to Miami. They have to play like these are the teams I could see them losing to: Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and LSU. Those are
Yeah.
5 games left.
I honestly would give them all L's except for a 50-50 with South Carolina.
Yeah, that's my opinion too. Is it's 50-50 with South Carolina because South Carolina's got its own issues.
Yeah.
But 5 to 6 losses, 4 to 6 losses, even like giving them that range, like that's not what you're paying Jimbo Fisher to do with the talent that they have.
Yeah. No, it's definitely not. So it's gonna be interesting to see, after this year of a probably disappointing season in their eyes, and then going next year, I guarantee you if they do lose 5 games or so or 5 or 6 games, there's gonna be plenty of Jimbo Fisher hot seat talks and how are they gonna pay that money just to get them out and who they're gonna bring in. So it'll be interesting to see because I mean, if the right coach comes into Texas A&M with that money, with those talent, the fame, like they could do great things. They just have to not be Jimbo Fisher. But we'll move on from the Texas A&M Miami game. We'll just hit some like other quick games here and there because I know you only watched a few of these games, and I didn't watch all of them either. But I'm going to start off with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish going into NC State's home and beating them 45-24. The big thing I want to mention from here is Sam Hartman. Obviously, he's been absolutely killing it. He had another 4-touchdown game. Uh, Historically, I was noticing that the pattern that I was noticing was that something about I think NC State running I think it's a 3-3-5 defense has given Sam Hartman fits ever since he was a freshman. He seems to never perform well there. On the flip side, obviously he understands the defense and he knows it. But he's always struggled. But coming from Wake Forest talent to Notre Dame talent, we see, when he has that offensive lineman like Joel in front of him, he has, Audric Estime behind him, he has the receivers for him, he can ball out. And I mean, he only threw 24 times, completed 15 of them, almost had 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. But the other big story is Audric Estime. I mean, that dude's a hoss, 14 carries, 134 yards.
He looks like a tank out there.
He just looks like he's rolling over. I mean, it's not like Leonard Fournette style, but like, because Leonard Fournette was just like angry running. But like the way people bounce off of him, it looks similar in that sense. And I mean, he had that 80-yard touchdown run, which I was surprised he made 80 yards without getting caught because I didn't think he was that fast. But he did it. He had 2 touchdowns, one other than the 80-yard run, and it was just interesting to see. I mean, I don't really have much to say about NC State. Brandon Armstrong, I mean, 3 interceptions, 3 touchdowns as well. So he's just who he is. NC State's just a team that's just going to be in the middle of the pack in the ACC. But Notre Dame's the big story that I wanted to bring up first because, they're number 10. I don't know what they are in the new AP poll, but I'm sure they're like about number, 8 to 10. But the big story with Notre Dame is always, they get ranked high. A lot of it's, off their brand name. They don't really play the hardest schedules, even though they do play some ACC teams every now and then. They obviously play USC, and somehow they weasel their way into college football playoff, and then they get bounced. So it's going to be interesting to see how it whirls out because I mean, with some of the guys they have on their schedule, if they can make their way into the top 4, they'll be battle tested. And with Sam Hartman, who's been one of the it sounds weird, but one of the best quarterbacks in our the last 5-6 years in college football.
If Notre Dame gets into the top 4, they'll have earned it though, despite this whole independent thing, because they still have to play Ohio State, Duke, USC, Clemson. Like they'll have like, and I'm not saying Clemson or Duke or like.
It's not the typical Notre Dame. like schedule,
those are,
how they get
if
it.
they are in the top 4, that means they've probably at least won 4 of those 5 games or whatever. Like,
yeah,
a one-loss Notre Dame team with one of the losses being like either Ohio State or USC is a worthy team to be in the top 4 contention.
Yeah. Is there any other performances that you noticed on Saturday?
North Carolina struggling and going to overtime with App State, I think, is a little bit odd.
That was
I
odd.
think Bo Nix showing a little bit of moxie, I guess, or just like resolve to not fold when they were down the way they were and winning that game was interesting. And then, Zachariah Branch for USC. I think that's his first name.
Yeah, it is.
Like, the kid is legitimately incredibly talented, and I'm already so excited to see like where his career goes. But that's about it.
Yeah, he's very electric. But yeah, I mean, seeing Bo Nix go down to Lubbock and just pull out a win, even when there was some things that didn't go his way. Pretty sure he had a fourth quarter comeback to help win that game. And I know a lot of people thought that was the perfect upset spot for Oregon. Get them out of the college football playoff talk. But no, I mean, Bo Nix showed up. He's grown up since that Auburn Bo Nix, and just
Bo Nix showed up, and Troy Franklin. Shout out, my big board there. Troy Franklin's in the top, I think, 25, something like that. Troy Franklin, 6 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown. Dude's having a great year.
Yeah, no, he is. And then the only other program I want to mention was Penn State. I mean, not because their game. They played Delaware at home, so obviously they're going to win 67-3. But they're just a team I'm looking out for. Because they're another one, like I said, with Notre Dame, how they're always, they always get close to the college football playoff, but, their big tests don't happen to the end of the year. They're probably going to be undefeated rolling when they face, November, I believe, Michigan and Ohio State. So that's going to be their big test, and, it's going to be the big test for all 3 of them. Until then, a lot of those teams are probably going to be undefeated. But, Drew Allaire, he looks good. He didn't have to do much this game, but he just looks good. They have Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton in the backfield. Neither one of them are really, going to put up Heisman numbers. Like possibly some thought. Like I thought Nick Singleton could possibly get in that conversation, but Kaytron Allen is kind of stealing the thunder from Nick Singleton right now, and he's looking better out of the backfield. So it's just going to be an interesting team because that defense is obviously really solid. Drew Allaire looks good, so it's kind of like now you have to defend the pass and the run because Penn State always has that running back.
The guy that's standing out to me on that team from like just the limited stuff I've seen, and it's someone I feel like has not been mentioned at all, but their leading receiver, Lambert Smith, kid looks pretty talented. He's a junior. I haven't gone and watched and seen studied his tape at all, but he's producing, and just the glimpses you get when you're watching the broadcast are pretty good. So if he keeps producing, he might be a name to watch.
Yeah, no, that's definitely. I feel like they have that sneaky wide receiver that no one really talks about until draft time, and then all of a sudden, Chris Godwin gets taken, day 2.
They're quietly becoming a very good pipeline for it. Hamler to Parker Washington to Lambert Smith
Godwin,
now.
Obviously.
There was another guy in there at some point that I'm missing. That Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, Dotson. I was like, I know this name. Yeah, Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, they've quietly become a pretty good pipeline for solid wide receivers.
Yeah, they don't really have a superstar, I would say, but yeah, they churn out a wide receiver or 2 every couple of years, and it's cool to see. Yeah, but with that, that's gonna really wrap up our Week 2 college football recap. Like I said, some interesting games, a lot of things to look forward to in Week 3. Unfortunately, I did a little look ahead, and it's kind of it's very lackluster slate. But we're gonna cover that in another video. So if you're listening to us on Spotify, go ahead and drop us a subscription on YouTube, and if you're watching us on YouTube, go follow us on Spotify. For Taylor, I will see you next time. Peace.
1, 2